Hello, my name's Phil and I work for the Customer Services Department at the Hozelock head office in Birmingham. With over 50 years horticultural expertise, we at Hozelock understand the rewards of gardening and want to help you get the best from your garden. The first thing you need to do is take the hose off the drum if you received your reel with a hose fitted. So I've taken all the hose off and laid it on the floor nice and neatly. The next thing you have to decide is when you're rewinding the hose, whether you want to rotate the drum clockwise or anti-clockwise, and you can obviously rotate it in either direction. You then have to feed the hose through this little boss here on the correct side. I'm going to be winding it anti-clockwise, so I'm going to feed the hose in through this little boss here on the right hand side. I'm going to pull a couple of meters out and just leave that tidily for one moment while I carry on with the rest of the assembly. The next thing we've got to do is connect this hose to the inlet that's inside the reel. So to get at that inlet, we need to take off the front disc at the front of the drum here. Put the disc down on one side so you don't lose it, and you can see the inlet that's held on by two self-tapping screws. We're going to take that inlet completely out by taking off the two screws. I've already taken one out, I'm now going to take the other one out. With the two screws removed, you can then just pull out the inlet elbow like so and carry on with the rest of the assembly. I'm going to take this grey nut off which secures the hose to the inlet and slide it up the hose like so with the threads facing the end of the hose. Slide that up out of the way. The next thing we have to do is put this spring into the inlet, which is an anti-kink spring. Locate the hook on the end of this spring and I'm going to push it into the middle of this little hole here that's in the middle of these claws. What we're going to do with that spring now is feed it down the bore of the hose pipe. This just stops the hose kinking for the first 6 or 7 inches of travel. And I'm pushing the hose pipe fully into the centre of this ring of claws. Make sure that you don't bend any of those claws inwards when you're assembling it. Push it in as far as it'll go and locate the clamping nut from earlier, slide it back up the hose and screw it onto the inlet. This is screwed hand tight so that the hose doesn't blow off. What I'm going to do now is feed some hose back in the direction of it, the way it came, until I can put the inlet down through this orifice here and out through the centre of the drum like that. We're then going to refit the inlet in the same position that it was when we took it out. So we poke this part of the inlet into the centre of that blue disc and push it all the way in so that the flange with the two screw slots on lines up with the two screw holes in the drum. With that fully fitted, we're then going to refit the two self-tapping screws to retain the inlet in place. Luckily I've got a magnetic screwdriver so that the screw is retained on the end of the screwdriver, which does make it easier. Okay, I've now refitted the two self-tapping screws so that the inlet is held in place. I'm just going to pull back some hose just to make sure it lies flat when I wind the hose on. So pull it back through this inlet so that it's got a nice gentle curve and comes out of the boss here on the drum and out up the garden. We can now proceed to wind the hose onto the reel by winding it, in my case, anti-clockwise, and at the same time layering the hose nice and neatly onto the drum. We've now got all the hose wound onto the drum. The next part of the assembly process is to locate this red water stop fitting which goes on the end of the hose that you'll take up the garden with you and do your watering. We're going to fit that to the end of the hose pipe in a similar manner to we did before. Take the grey nut off and slide that up the hose so that you don't forget it later on. The end of the hose then pushes onto the centre of the fitting inside the ring of claws. Make sure you don't trap any of the claws as you push it in. Give it a little wiggle from side to side and push it in till it won't go any further. Locate the grey nut, thread this back along the threads of the fitting and do it up nice and tight. The last thing to do is to locate the hose nozzle, which fits into the end, and that just pushes in, and that's ready to water your garden. That's it, job done.